Oh, hi. I know that you've asked me to come to speak about something that's very personal to my life, and it's something that a lot of you want to hear because you have issues with perhaps chronic illnesses or MS, or you know somebody who's got multiple sclerosis, and that's why you asked me to come and speak. And some of you are here just because you're curious to see what an Indian looks like. No, I'm just kidding. But more importantly, an Indian without an Indian accent. Although I can bring up the Indian accent if you would like. I can bring that if you would like. So, no? Yes? You? Okay, I'll do that for him once in a while, but most of the time I'm not going to do that. I joke around a little bit about this topic because it's so serious and it's just so crushing that I don't like it. Honestly, I don't like talking about this, especially because I really wish this was kind of like riding in a cab. You know, when you ride in a taxi, I don't know, for whatever reason, you look out from the back seat and you look out that windshield and you see how this cab driver is driving like a maniac. And you're like, oh man, I'd never drive like that if I was in there. I'm sitting in the car, I'm sitting in the cab. And that's the way I'm looking at multiple sclerosis right now. I'm like, oh man, I wish I didn't have that. I really wouldn't want that. I do have that. I have multiple sclerosis, and I've had it since 1999. And I've had to deal with all the issues that go along with MS for a long time. And for those of you who don't understand MS or don't even know what the effects of MS are, I'll just give you a Reader's Digest short version of MS. MS is a interesting disease, especially for a guy who's an electrical engineer, because MS messes with my electrical system. It messes with your electrical system if you have multiple sclerosis. So I want you to imagine a wire, like a cord that turns on a lamp. That wire has got insulation on the outside of it, and the covering of that cord is something that is being eaten away by my immune system. So imagine my nerves, they have that same insulation on there, and it's called myelin. Myelin sheet that's on that nerve covering. And my immune system, for whatever reason, thinks that that covering is a virus. And so it's eating that and tearing that stuff away. Well, once you tear enough of that insulation away, what you end up with is exposed wires. And those electrical signals are firing all over the place, and people will feel numbness and tingling and all sorts of weird things all over your body. But if those nerves ever break, it's game over. Even though the brain wants to get the legs to move, if that nerve is broken, can't do that. I want to get those fingers to move, even though my brain's telling my fingers to move and my fingers can't move, can't do that because there's no connection between the two, between the brain and this. So that's what MS is all about. It's about stripping away the myelin sheath, and this causes all sorts of issues. And by the way, MS also causes depression. How wonderful is a side effect, because it causes all sorts of mental disorders. Now, interestingly, doctors can tell you all these things, and they can even tell you the proteins that are causing all this stuff and demyelination and all these different words, but they don't have a cure. They don't even know what causes it. They don't know what causes MS. They don't know how to get rid of MS. What am I paying these doctors for anyway? It's kind of one of those kind of diseases where you go, you get the diagnosis, and then you find out there's no cure and there's no hope. There's just no hope. Now, interestingly, there's a lot of research being done right now on trying to come up with a cure, but nothing yet. There's a lot of advances, but what does that mean? Well, there's some ways to actually slow down the process of the demyelination and kind of giving you a little bit of order back. So instead of declining like this, you can decline a little bit slower rate. Okay, not the best news, but it's still good news. And one of the therapies, it's called the ABC drugs. Avonex, Betaseron, and Copaxone. Those are the three drugs that are best known. There's a new one coming out that's Rebif, which is by Serrano. It's different companies. Doesn't matter. But the whole idea is this is putting poison into your body on a daily or a weekly basis, depending on the drug that you take. And then what you end up doing is having your immune system attack that poison instead of attacking the myelin sheath. Seems to work. They show a significant slowdown of the progression of MS with people who take this. Is any of this encouraging you? It's not encouraging me. This sucks. All right, to be honest with you, it really stinks to get a diagnosis like this and having to live with something like this. Now, most of the people that get diagnosed with MS get it around the median age of about 33 and a half. Isn't that great numbers? 33 and a half is when they get diagnosed with MS. I was 33 when I was diagnosed with MS. Isn't that interesting? Now, what happens is they show you a progression path. They'll say within 10 years, here's all the things that's going to happen. Don't you love it when doctors predict your future? Well, they predicted mine. In 1999, they said that within 10 years, you're going to start losing mobility. What does that mean? That means I won't be able to walk. Okay, not so good, because I'm the only breadwinner for my family. I've got 3 daughters and a wife, and the first thing that happens is sense of overwhelm. I don't know what I'm going to do. How am I going to take care of my family? How am I going to? I don't know. And I smile a little bit because there's so many people in that same situation right now. There's so many people in that same situation. Maybe it's not MS. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something else that's chronic. I found out something really sad about this whole disease is that the drugs are so expensive. Even the things to slow things down, some people can't even afford those drugs. So even if they had an opportunity to slow it down, some people can't even afford to do that. How depressing is that? That's a really depressing disease, wouldn't you agree? All right. I'm going to add to your depression just a little bit more. And you wanted to hear this, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to just lay it all out there for you. You know, this is one of these open kimono type of things. One of the things that I will tell you is that 99, I get diagnosed with MS. I go into denial for about a year, by the way. I didn't accept it. I did not accept that I have MS. And so it took me about a year plus before I was convinced by doctors, by one of my favorite neurologists in Pittsburgh. He actually showed me some things. He's a really good guy, and he explained the birds and the bees to me, basically. And he showed me that I have MS. And he showed that to me with MRIs. And MRI is a really interesting image. It's a magnetic resonance image of my brain and my spinal column. And it shows all these white spots that showed up in my brain. And what are those white spots? Those are ways that your body creates little water spots to try to heal your body. Those white spots are very indicative of the fact that you have MS. When he showed me that, and he showed me how they're growing, he says, your MS is rapidly progressing unless you try to control it with Avonex or some other form of therapy. Okay, fast forward 2 years, I go ahead and start on Avonex. Avonex is a Biogen product, excellent product, by the way. And I start taking it in about 2001. So let's move forward to 2007. 2007, April. I still remember the month because it was the time for me to teach my daughter how to ride a bicycle. She was 7 years old at the time, and it's time for me to teach her how to ride a bicycle. So now, 2007 was really a tough year for me because my MS had really taken off, and I started losing mobility from my waist down. From my waist down, I could hardly walk around. Stairs, forget about it. Forget about it. I'm not doing stairs. If I started going any distance at all, I was just fatigued to the point where I could not do it any longer. I just couldn't do it. Okay, so I come home one day from work, and my daughter, Jordan, who was 7 at the time, says, "Dad, you have to show me how to ride a bike. You told me you would." I'm like, "Oh, yes, it's a rite of passage. I've taught my other 2 daughters. It's time for daughter number 3 to be taught by Dad how to ride a bicycle." We get out there. Jordan gets on her bicycle. I stand there holding the bike, okay? And I go, now pedal as hard as you can. Daddy's going to be right there with you. She starts pedaling, and I hit the floor. I can't move. I'm on the ground. I am done. I am more depressed now than I ever have been. And you don't know me. Some of you do. I am not a very depressed type of person. I'm very energetic. I'm very high energy. I'm very positive. I'm telling you, MS was kicking my behind. And I was so depressed. So I did the right thing as I went to my neurologist and I said, "What's going on?" So he took an MRI. This is in April of 2007 now. So he takes